Wonderful. Thank you so much for the welcome and glad to see you guys all here. And without further ado, Daniel, the floor is yours.
All right, can you hear me? Okay, so I'm Daniel Hernandez. I'm a Chief Deputy over the Juvenile Operations Bureau for the Probation Department. And what that means is I oversee basically all juvenile operations for our department, including our field officers in our court functions like intake and things like that, our diversion, as well as our 3 juvenile facilities. So what the big things that have been happening over the last year or so that I wanted to discuss are some of the major changes or potential changes, which include something called SB 823, which is legislative change that went into effect actually last year, 2020 actually, and I'm sorry, 2021, and then talk about some things going on in our juvenile facilities. So I'll start with SB 823. The statute made several very substantive structural changes to the juvenile system. It's referred to as juvenile justice realignment. We've had other kinds of realignment over the years, which is by realignment, it means moving formerly state overseen functions to the county level. You may have heard of things like AB 109, which moved a lot of CDCR adult functions to the county level, to probation on the adult side. There was some juvenile realignment about 2007, where the law prohibited certain youth from going to the state level Department of Juvenile Justice that previously used to go to the state level. And then this latest SB 823 is kind of the finalization of that realignment, basically moving all state, formerly state overseen juvenile functions to the county level. So coming this July, there will no longer be any juvenile initiated cases at the Department of Juvenile Justice at the state level unless we pay for it. And so we can still have some of those more serious and violent offenders going to the state, but we would be any county still having juvenile cases at the state level would have to be footing the bill for that. The good thing here in Orange County, just culturally, structurally, since that initial realignment back in 2007, our court really embraced, and again, kind of because of their confidence in probation and what we were doing in our facilities, really stopped sending a lot of cases to the state, even when they still could. So currently we only have 3 juvenile cases at DJJ. There are other counties that are in much worse situations where they have 40 or 50 youth that might be coming back to them. Whereas just over the last 10 or 15 years, we basically stopped sending youth to the state level. And so we're facing less of an impact in that sense, in that we've been dealing with our serious and violent youth offenders or youth with those types of cases locally with probation for many years now. And so we're just to kind of paint the landscape, we are a little bit different in that sense. And we're hearing that from the newly created department called the Office of Youth and Community Restoration, OYCR, which is overseeing this realignment process. And they're telling us too that they're in disbelief that we don't have more cases at DJJ, and how on earth are we handling them locally and things like that. So it's kind of a good thing in that sense that we keep our kids local, and we have been for many years. So but what the statute basically did was it raised the age limit of youth that can be housed in our juvenile facilities. Formerly it was 18, and then it was up to 21 if we had a waiver approved by the state, which we did here in Orange County. So we have been housing youth up to age 21 for many, many years. And you just have to show that you have the ability to do so and the services and the capacity to do so. And so we've been doing that for many, many years. So we're kind of getting ahead of the game in that sense. But the new statute increased the age, maximum age to 25. So 24 and 364 days. So we can now house youth continually, or if their case originated in juvenile court, up until the age of 25. That does not raise the age of majority for criminal court versus juvenile court, meaning if a youth commits a crime at 18, that case is still filed in adult court, and they would still be housed in the jail. This only changed the circumstances for youth whose cases originated in juvenile court. So for our youth who are arrested prior to their 18th birthday, they can stay with us now much longer. But that's the key, is their case has to have originated in juvenile court for this to apply to them. So it did that. So in one sense, it did that it increased that age limit that youth can stay with us. And now we already have youth over 21 in our juvenile facilities. Whereas previously we would have been sending them to the jail. So I mean, it's a better thing for them to remain with us and have that continuity. And of course, we think we do things very well in our facilities, so it's better for them in that sense. Another thing that it did is the statute provided funds to supply new programs and services for this population, this older population that we're going to have, and that we're seeing now, obviously, with our youth staying with us longer. And so over the last year, the statute also required a work group, a subcommittee be created to oversee the development of a local plan. And that's what took place over the last year or so. So Orange County did develop a plan with the input of a subcommittee, including by statute at minimum 3 community partners, the DA, public defender, healthcare agency, Department of Education, and probation. So that plan has been submitted and includes a lot of good, positive, supportive, and additional programs and services for our youth. And because we haven't been sending that many youth to the state, again, the good thing is that we're able to envision and plan those services to serve the kids that are could have potentially been one of those Department of Juvenile Justice youth in the past. And the goal is that they don't become those types of youth in the future, right? So our plan is aimed at adding additional programs and services to that higher risk population. They have committed some type of serious or violent offense, but they don't have to rise to the level of, obviously going to the state anymore to receive those services. So our plan is envisioned to be get very beneficial to a large population of youth. That's going to add new programs and services here in Orange County. That's going to be really, I think, beneficial, including vocational training and expanding our college program and doing a lot of good therapeutic work and things like that. So we're very, very excited to get these things off the ground, and there are committees working right now to prioritize how those funds are going to be utilized over the next several years. So our hope is to have some prioritization done in the next coming weeks and months, and start putting out some solicitations for these new services. And so we're hoping to partner with new community partners, as well as expand some services by our county partners. And like I mentioned, add some new things on the vocational training side, as well as the formal education, like college level education for some of those older kids. Adding some things, again, to prevent or address gang violence and things like that. We have some really neat restorative practices programs going on that have been very promising in our facilities, that have helped our youth who are going to be with us for a long time, live together with their rival gang members, that they would not have got along with prior to them being with us. And we've seen a lot of great outcomes from those efforts, where these youth are now being able to see each other like a family and are able to live together again for potentially, extended periods of time on some of these more serious offenses. But again, better than going to the jail or going to state prison. We're hoping to keep them locally and be able to, of course, serve their needs. And our court has shown that they are, again, prefer that they be with us and go through this process, and then can be released, probably much sooner than they would have had they just gone to prison. So, and be much better off when they get released for everybody. So for themselves, their families, and our community. So we're really excited about this new potential process and structure in our juvenile facilities to serve, again, our highest need youth. And the funding currently statutorily is for 3 years. It is envisioned to go beyond that. It's just they didn't want to map out a funding formula out past 3 years. Again, not being able to predict what things are going to look like beyond that, but it is anticipated that funding will continue beyond the 3 years. It's just, it hasn't been put in statute yet what that funding formula would look like. So, so that's SB 823. Any questions on that before I move on to some of our facility activities?
Yeah, Daniel, I have a couple questions. When it comes to some of these larger capital cases, like let's say a kid gets convicted of murder, attempted murder, something like that, would they still keep them here in the county, or how does that work?
So the legal process of how those are addressed doesn't change. So the DA can still petition to have those cases transferred to adult court as long as they're over 16. So that will continue. Mm-hmm. It's just that the court now has this other option to weigh, where maybe they would have been comfortable maybe with a younger, less sophisticated kid, even with a very serious offense. Sometimes they would keep some of those kids locally, or to DJJ. There is attempt murder or murder cases who had formerly been sent to the state level instead of Department of Juvenile Justice, and not tried as adults. So it's possible that some of those might stay with us. Again, they could, if the crime was committed at a young age, they could still stay with us till 25, whereas they would have gone to DJJ until 25 in the past. However, but like I mentioned, the DA can still petition to have those cases moved to adult. They could still be tried as an adult and sent to state prison. Okay. So that process still exists.
Would they still be given an opportunity to stay here till they're 25 and then go on to prison, or?
So if the case is, they have to be has to be a juvenile case for them to be able to be housed in our juvenile facility. Correct. Up to 25. So once legally the case gets transferred and accepted in adult court, then they're no longer a juvenile. So then at 19, they would have to move to the jail.
Okay.
If their case is converted to an adult case.
Okay, thank you. I had one other quick question. You mentioned about a committee that's in charge of like how the funds are allocated. Mm-hmm. Who's on that committee? Is that just internal through probation, the county, or is there other people that are part of that committee? Or
yeah. So it's by statute, it was created as a subcommittee of the Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council, which is already an existing multi-agency body. However, the statute required that it include 3 community members. And so those community representatives were and still continue to be as the subcommittee meets in the future. Nasli, Steve Kim from Project Kinship, and Megan Medlin.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Daniel.
I think also Judge Modowiki was part of that She isn't part of the JJCC, but Judge Modowiki was part of that subcommittee. Megan was for a little bit, then she opted out, but
Okay.
and just to clarify that the subcommittee reported back to the JJCC about the plan, and it was approved by the JJC. And so there was a process with that. So not only did the subcommittee have eyes on doing the grunt work, if you will, of putting the plan together and providing our feedback as a committee, and then it was presented to the larger JJCC, and there was also feedback that was given from the other committee and other CBOs, and Megan was on that JJCC as well, just to help understand the little structure there. I did have a question about the committee because I know recently Megan and I had attended some other subcommittees, and Daniel, you had introduced us to that. That's like another umbrella, if you will, and I think there is opportunity for CBOs to be part of that, to my understanding.
Yeah. So there's another committee. There's a million committees, right? So there's another committee. It's called the Juvenile Justice Services Committee. That was established, by Judge Modowiki last year, and that is not specifically associated with SB 823. It's being used now to have further discussions, more kind of operational on the ground, how things are going to get put into place. But that committee looks at all things juvenile justice related. So, but yeah, recently we reached out to Nasli and Megan, and because some of these conversations are gonna, again, be enhanced by our community partner input. So yeah, there'll be more opportunity. And I think, and there is, if you haven't heard, there's a larger county initiative, and this was news to Nasli a couple of months ago, called OC Cares. So OC Cares has been a multi-year project of the county. This is not probation, but the county as a whole, initiated a few years ago as the Stepping Up initiative, which was focused on mental health, and then grew into something called integrated services, which looked to, I think, as these things progress, look to kind of maximize efficiency across county agencies. That's why it was called integrated services, because let's integrate the things we're doing across the county. And integrated services has now merged into OC Cares. And what that initiative has done now countywide is set a variety of goals and objectives in various pillars, including the courts in custody, reentry, and juvenile related matters across the county. So there have been some work groups involved in that, but going forward, it is going to require our community partner involvement. So Judge Arthur, our new juvenile presiding judge, and I co-chair the juvenile and transitional age youth subcommittee now under OC Cares. I just took that over as co-chair just a couple of weeks ago. But he and I have met, and there's some goals under that pillar that talk about identifying, community resource needs and things like that. And so those are things that he and I have already brainstormed. We're going to have to come to you guys and some of these other networking opportunities to help us through those. So yeah, there will be some nexus and connections, going forward to both OC Cares as well as 823 or this Juvenile Justice Services Committee. All right.
Thank you, Daniel.
Are you able to see the chat? Were there any questions in the chat?
I'm looking right now, and I don't have any questions in the chat. But
Daniel, would you mind putting in your email address or your work phone, whatever is easiest to contact you in the chat?
Okay, I will. Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, and please, if anything comes up, I will leave my information in the chat. You can reach out to me, or even as I move on to the next topic, if some question pops up, feel free to jump in. So,
Daniel,
yeah.
Can I interrupt really quick?
Sure.
Thank you for sharing updates on all of this. I had attended at least when they were virtual, the JCCCCC with the county. I managed to pop in on at least one of them. The OC Cares, I see the 45-page kind of document, the update. is there an opportunity to, for community stakeholders to observe or participate in the discussion?
So
I mean, the plan is set, right? I
Yeah,
mean, that's
yeah,
clear in the document, but.
there were some community partners involved in the development of the document. Going forward, as I think as it applies, then again, we'll have to establish how that communication is going to take place. Like, this is a good opportunity. And like I mentioned, I just mentioned it to Judge Arthur last week that I would likely be reaching out to this group, and maybe public notices as well when it comes time to start addressing some of those community resource discussions. So yeah, the plan in the development of the development of the plan did have representation, obviously limited certain members, but there was representation in identifying what the goals were. But now it's how do we get there is what's going to involve, obviously a lot more people. So yeah, the real work hasn't been done yet. So yeah, when it comes to doing that, again, my intention is to reach out to this group, and then also, I don't know if it'll be on, it will likely be on the county's OC Cares links and things like that, where we can post requests for interest.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, I would
Okay.
appreciate that. I know that
Okay.
this is a more accessible group.
Yeah.
And so that would be,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
helpful,
We'll definitely include information sharing through this group, and then anything additional would be, probably on the county website. Okay.
Thank you, Daniel. And I think that was one of the, the feedback that we've had, and I'm really glad that we're going to be that space, right, to provide that feedback and having you here. This is not the last time we're going to see Daniel or the representation of patients. So we hope it to be one of many.
Yes, anytime.
All right. I know you still have more to updates, right? Or were you?
Yeah. So
Okay.
on the juvenile facilities. So again, this is all public as well, but I'm going to get into some detail as part of the Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council as well, meetings over the last several years. It was identified a need for an adult reentry center, adult reentry, coming out of the jails here in Orange County. And so what has been proposed is the conversion of our youth guidance center into an adult reentry facility. It has obviously the infrastructure and the resources there for basically any kind of residential, program, but then begets the question, what do we do with the program at YGC? So that has been the object of very deep discussion this past year. What has been the commitment from the board and the CEO's office, again, after lots of consternation over that process or that prospect of moving YGC youth and utilizing that facility for the adult reentry center. If you haven't seen YGC or been there, it's a very nice space, lots of open space, and it's in the middle of Santa Ana between the riverbed and the 5 freeway, but you probably wouldn't be able to tell. You kind of can get lost and pretend you're out in the forest, if you're there. And so it is a really nice space. Obviously, we've had it since the 60s. It's a very large footprint. And so in that sense, it's an asset, obviously, for our youth. And so, so in order to replace that, it's been, again, a very difficult process, right? How do we make something or replace something that's so great, right? That's such a nice asset for our youth. So over the last 8 months or so, we went through a process of establishing what the requirements for a new facility would be if we wanted to replace YGC with something else. And the only real viable prospect would be to replace it by adding an additional facility on the footprint at Juvenile Hall. So what we did was we met with several well, all of our involved stakeholder parties like the healthcare agency and Department of Education, folks that are integral and housed currently in all of our facilities, providing services to our youth, as well as several community partners, who either provide services to youth or could potentially provide service to youth, and also some juvenile advocates to speak on behalf of our youth or formerly incarcerated folks who could speak from their own experiences and advocate the position of the interests of our youth and our parents and families. And so we did a series of focus groups over a few months in the fall, where the county CEO's office had contracted with an architecture firm to do a site analysis of juvenile hall and see, if what we were proposing as our needs in a new facility could possibly be recreated or created on the juvenile hall campus. And so they participated in those focus groups with all of those interested parties and kind of heard from all of us as to what we would want to see. And we took the stance of, let's start with our pie in the sky dream of what we would want. And what we came up with was something, at least on paper, even better than any facility we currently have, utilizing best practices, things that have been learned over the last 20 years about what's best for kids, and even structurally and physically what's best for buildings, that house youth, when it comes to the architecture, the layout, the colors, the textures, and a variety of things that, of course, weren't known at the time that our juvenile hall was built, or even YGC was built, several decades ago. So our goal was, if we're going to build something new, let's build something that's good for the current industry standard, and best practices for youth. And so we had a lot of neat things in our proposal and our requirements for the architect. And so through that process, they came up, and by the way, this is not budgeted yet. This is not even anything that is in stone as moving forward. And the CEO has been very clear about that there's still options on the table. And we really need, and like I said, a commitment from the board and the CEO's office is we would find a place for the youth first. We would build something first. We wouldn't be moving youth into existing old units at juvenile hall or anything like that. And so that's the concept we're working with, is that we would be on a multi-year kind of track to build something new. And ideally something new that's even better than anything we have. So the architect worked with us for several months and came up with a very, that question one to answer was, could it fit on the property at juvenile hall? And we are talking about, in order to do that, would be demolishing some old areas of juvenile hall in order to make room for a new facility. And then would the proposal of these focus groups, even fit in that footprint, and how would it, even architecturally, what the layout might look like and things like that. So we did go through a process with the architect. There are some possibilities that it could work. But after some discussions, the CEO's office has basically taken it kind of under consideration at this point. There's no concrete future plans at this point. And now it's a matter of deciding still whether we want to and can do it, and a matter of budget, obviously. So it would be an enormous undertaking, obviously, to do something like that. So at this point, there is no next steps. There is no next step at this point as far as the construction or moving YGC or anything like that. So if you work at YGC or work with our youth or are familiar with YGC, there is no impending closure or move or anything like that. But I just wanted to address it because it is public, has been addressed as a proposed and approved solution for the adult reentry need. But that second shoe hasn't dropped yet as far as, when it would happen or how it would happen. So, but just to be, it's exciting as well to think that we could have, again, a new facility that is even physically better as far as the units go than anything we have. The difficult part, though, and one of our requirements was trying to replicate that camp-like feel, outdoors, lots of trees, lots of greenery, and things like that. And so we would be, again, attempting to do that on the grounds at Juvenile Hall. So by, again, demolishing some old units and taking advantage of some field space and just doing our best to make it feel like a camp and have those youth, really have a transitional type of environment. We did propose things like transitional housing on that new campus, which would include some apartment style living spaces, so we could have youth potentially transition from, again, even having a nexus to this 823 conversation, you could have youth transition from Juvenile Hall to maybe even Youth Leadership Academy to Youth Guidance Center, the new Youth Guidance Center, and even into an apartment style housing as part of the new YGC, where they could, go work during the day or go to school, come back at night and have their own kitchen and living room and more of a laundry and, do their own dishes and stuff like that, kind of learning independent living. And so that was all included in our proposal and our plan, and it made it into the final version. So those are, again, embracing some new ideas that would be pretty monumental for the industry that no one even in our neighboring counties is doing. So that would be really, really neat if we could do some things like that. Also includes vocational space, an entire culinary kitchen where youth could learn, some marketable skills and or pursue college as well there on the campus. One other just kind of physical construction kind of facility thing that's been going on is we have been in construction of our multi-purpose rehabilitation center on the Juvenile Hall campus. We call it MRC for short. It's a partially state-funded program or project that's been in process for many years, but just broke ground about a year and a half ago. It's near completion. It's now due to be completed in July, and it is a wonderful new space. It's on the grounds of Juvenile Hall. It's back behind our kitchen and warehouse area. But what is there is going to be our new visiting center. So parents will be able to visit with our youth. And there's a nice big free parking lot back there. There are two, it actually sits on the perimeter of Juvenile Hall. So there is a public accessible area, and then there's a inside the perimeter, basically in custody, still area, right? So on outside the perimeter, we have 2 classrooms. And so that's where we envision our parenting classes and things like that taking place, where the public has access, and they're great training spaces or collaborative spaces there. And in kind of thinking of what we wish we've had up to this point, it has outdoor play spaces for minor siblings or little children. Currently, when we have parenting classes, we've really struggled with, of course, we allow folks to bring their younger siblings, and we have childcare, through our vendor that does our parenting classes, but they're in a conference room. We've had to really struggle with space, and so this new space has these great new training rooms or classrooms, and even outdoor play space for kids, for younger siblings or children. Inside the perimeter, like I mentioned, we have a visiting center. The visiting center also has some outdoor visiting spaces, so we can now have some picnic tables outside and have some outdoor visiting, much better than our current visiting setup at Juvenile Hall. And also indoors inside the perimeter, it's an beautiful entire indoor gym, full basketball court, a workout facility, and just a great space that will likely be, in the near future, places where we can have special events or graduations and things like that. And also what we're very proud of is inside the perimeter, there are 2 new vocational spaces. So there's one vocational training space that's just like a big classroom with long work benches, and that we will be soliciting for someone to help us with some type of vocational training, whether that's construction or electrical or plumbing or something like that. And then I guess one of the areas we're most excited about is the other vocational room is a completely functional auto shop. And so the auto shop has the entire lift and the wheel balancing machines and alignment machines and all that stuff in there. And so again, we'll be soliciting for someone to help do a full ASC, auto shop, auto repair certification program for our youth. And so that's a really neat and exciting space. And we're hoping to partner with someone with that for that, whether it's one of our colleges or maybe even partner with a local auto dealer for sponsorships and things like that. So we're really looking forward to that new building opening again, probably around July. So any questions about any of that facility stuff?
Daniel, I put in the chat something. So I'm a part of like all the Be Well result areas. A lot of what you describe environmentally sounds a lot like the Be Well Irvine consideration. So maybe they're using the same person. It would in some of the ideas. But I also included, again, it's probably late, but I included in the chat a guide that's actually intended for prescribers, seeing those with intellectual and developmental disabilities, dual diagnosed with mental health and behavioral health needs. And the report itself is from the Center for START Services, but it absolutely includes some universal design and considerations in new development and just general environment to ensure that those with sensory needs, mental health needs, and other disabilities have full access and can obviously support a more calm environment. So it sounds like what you describe in detail is really incorporating a lot of those concepts. But if there's ever a need for more, another resource, I went ahead and put that report in the chat. The other consideration is, of course, we know that medical needs are cared for in these facilities as well. And it does give some really important prescribing guidelines for some of the medications, especially if someone is on has a multi-medication regime and has a disability. There are some factors to consider that are not in your standard treatment or training
Building
unless
code,
you work. Huh?
Yeah, like in the building code, right? Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So just wanted to
Okay.
kind of put
No,
that
that's
out
great.
there as a resource. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Especially when we're talking about a new facility. Yeah, we have not even, we're at rectangles on a piece of paper right now. So but that's great to know that once we get down the road, that I would definitely try to incorporate. Again, we're talking about being modern, being current, and addressing everything we need to now. So thank you. I'll look at that.
Any other questions? I know that there was one question here. I'm not sure if it was from Mike Gonzalez. There was a question regarding about, yes, Daniel, would you know when the last OJJDP longitudinal study was conducted?
OJJDP? No, I don't. What outcome are you looking to? What are you asking about as far as?
Yeah, sorry. Hi, Daniel. This is Michael. A few years ago, the OJJDP compiled a very comprehensive study in many areas: social, educational, different environments, and they partner with many agencies, psychologists, child experts to conduct a 5-year study. And the last one that I heard about was in 2011. Obviously things have changed significantly since 2011. And so I was wondering, because I couldn't find it anywhere. And normally they would do the OJJDP would conduct a study, longitudinal study every 5 years. And it's a
Okay.
great resource because it really gives you from A to Z. It gives you, all the different procedural, safest and best, guidelines for working with incarcerated as well as reentry populations. And so it was just a question that I thought you might.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm not familiar. I'll look into that, but yeah, no, I wasn't aware. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I'll put my contact information, and I'm sorry I do have to run now, but put my contact information and we can touch base afterwards if you need to, okay?
Thank you so much, Daniel. As you said, we
Okay.
might have, he's gonna come back, so.
Yes, yeah, let me know and I can come back again.
Absolutely, and we're definitely eager to know more, as you can see. And then, but yeah, thank you so much, Daniel. I do appreciate all this update. I think it's wonderful. So we really appreciate your time, and we'll continue a partnership as well.
Yeah, and when the county, or at least probation that I'm, have purview over, when we need community involvement, I'll be sure to reach out to Nasli and we can involve this group. So as at least a backstop, and then in addition to whatever other contact we do publicly. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank
All
you.
right. All right. Bye-bye. I'm going to put my contact information. Thanks.
Thanks, Daniel. All right, so that was a lot of information. Some really good information. And I know that Megan and I for sure wanted to just to kind of stay on the theme of the SB 823, the plan that he spoke about, which I know that we kind of shared with you a little bit about our involvement. And he spoke a little bit about how Judge Motowiki was starting her own subcommittee. So there is a lot of waves of subcommittee happening right now. And so I know that we were happy, Megan and I were pulled in, but definitely there's a lot of different subcommittees that are happening under that reentry branch, if you will, under OC Cares. And it's been under that reentry branch. It looks like they have a mental health component, education component, and even a reentry component, all related to the juvenile justice system. And so there's a lot of overlap in some of these meetings, but it is her way to really try to get the ball moving as far as the plan that was submitted that he spoke about, and really putting teeth to that plan. And when Daniel had mentioned it to us, when we reached out to him to kind of give us an update about what's happening, he's like, have you heard of this? We're like, no. And so we met with the group and with Judge Motowiki, and we let them know about us and what we're doing. And so definitely, if folks are interested in being part of some of these subcommittees, there was one under education. So again, some of you guys have a different interest, mental health, like I said, education. One was very specific on reentry. I specifically attended mental health subgroup as well as the education subgroup. And then Megan attended the reentry. So we definitely want to make sure our voices are being heard and our feedback is given, and they do want to. I see that there's a lot of beginning stages of this, and so we definitely want to make sure that we're there to provide feedback. I think one of the things that we did mention is that eventually these things end up becoming an RFP, because if there is funding come along. And so I know one of the concerns we had is that we don't want to be ever opted out, right? Should we want to provide a proposal, and so that they would let us know the time that we would need to step back and not be part of that process. So that way we can actually be funded actually apply for some of these proposals, as many of us might want to, especially if it's something that we feel that we can provide a service to. So I think that was heard from the committee, and they definitely want to hear our feedback, but they're also very attuned and aware that we would need to be asked, okay, this is the time where we're asking for RFPs, and we don't want to be not eligible should those opportunities present itself. So I know, again, if you are interested, you'd like to know more, please let us know in the chat, or just email Megan and I, and we'll get you connected. They are already scheduled set times and dates. So the ball already has been rolling. So if we're happy to share the information if you're able to attend. I know that we'll welcome feedback, especially if there's specific topics of those subcommittees that you feel passionate about and you want to at least listen in as well and provide feedback. Any questions? More subcommittees, right? So at least probation is definitely going to come back and use us. And that's kind of what we propose to probation, even with Judge Modowiki, says, we have a group that's already been established, so we're already meeting. And we would love to be able to be that conduit. And so that way we don't have to be going to several committees, so many different subcommittees. But I know that Megan and I cannot be everywhere. So we thought, well, maybe we'll ask somebody here and if we can have some representation from the subcommittee to those places, then that would be great. So, but I know we are busy. So, but definitely reach out if you want to know more. But those are the 3 committees that it's being convened, and again, the people who are sitting there are a lot of government. We have the Orange County Department of Education with the education background, right? And then juvenile probation sitting there, along with other folks in the realm of education, and then mental health. Of course, you've got your health partners there, government health partners, but at this moment, there isn't any CBOs or service providers or anybody from the community really there at those spaces just yet. All right, so I just want to be able to move along, and I want to give an opportunity to briefly talk about the Job and Resource Fair. I know we've tried to have several meetings, kind of going back and forth on dates and times. Just to communicate clearly, we decided that we would hold this Job and Resource Fair in June, given some other responsibilities that we have on our plate, but we are definitely wanting to host something in June. So again, if you are interested in being part of this planning committee, we know I know there's been people who've already been on it, but I know things have changed. So we just want to kind of send it out there and go, it is happening. It's going to happen in June. The venue, there's been some ideas tossing around. So it just really depends on how many volunteers we get. But it might be at someone's parking lot. It seems like that might be the better option. We had toyed about renting out Delhi. But I know for us as an agency, for Project Youth OCBF, we have a relationship with the food bank, and we're able to get food boxes from our local food banks. And we just got confirmation that we'll get several of them every month. And so we know that we would like to provide those food boxes at this job fair and resource fair that we're doing, so that as families come to the fair, that they're allotted a food box, and along with all the resources and information that we want to share. So so keep out and a lookout. Either regardless if you're not part of the planning committee or not, we're definitely going to send the invitation for an opportunity to have a table. And we would definitely want everyone to be a tabling there. And then also we want to open it up to all, clients that you're serving that you would want to come to this job and resource fair. And so that will open it up to the families and the youth that you're serving as well. So just depending on number wise and how many people we expect to have, but given if we do it outdoors, we're not really limited on capacity, whereas we probably would have had in Delhi. But I think now that things are opening up, and things seem to be loose as far as our policies and procedures around COVID. So, but definitely we're looking in June, and we'll be hearing more information about that. Any questions?
Nasli, are you thinking of doing that during the week or the weekend? I know it's in June, but have you guys thought about, when you might have it?
Yeah, so again, I think this is kind of the feedback we need to hear from the planning committee. And when we spoke originally, talked about it, we said definitely during the evening or a late afternoon, because we're targeting not just the youth, but also their families. So it's a very comprehensive approach of how we're looking at that. And in our experience and providing this job and resource fair, when we offered it to the whole family, that evening hour seemed to be better. So 5 o'clock and on. Weekends tends to be, there's a lot of competing things that are happening on the weekends. With even family planning events or visiting family, it seems like weekday seemed to work really better as far as feedback we heard from the planning committee. So sometime in the week, 5 o'clock and on is what we're looking at. All right, if there aren't any other questions regarding about that, this is an opportunity for a roundtable, and any announcements that you want to share. This is your opportunity to share and give an update with all of our attention to you.
So there's a job fair coming up next Thursday, April 21st at the Discovery Cube in Santa Ana, and there's going to be a number of different employers there. It's going to be really, really big. It's being sponsored by OC Supervisor Katrina Foley. I have a flyer, Nasli. Could I send it over to you, and then maybe you can fan it out to people? So it's supposed to be pretty big, and I know there's going to be some resources there as well.
Yeah, we heard about it too, but I haven't received an invite to table at the event, because that would be nice. Has anybody received a table to invite, or has that passed already?
I think you could probably do it. The business specialist that I work with through the Department of Rehab mentioned in an email that the Department of Rehab has one, and they just found out about it. So I mean, I can ask them, hey, would you mind sharing your table if they're, give me your email address. I'll send it to you right now while we're talking. So throw it in the chat.
I will do that right now. While I'll do that, does anybody have another update? Thank you for sharing with that. It's good. Am I hearing none? No updates? Everybody's ready for the summer. I think that's what it is. Well, I'm not sure if I had announced it this last time, but at Project Youth OCBF, we just announced a new program called ICANN, which means Independence, Competency, and Aptitudes Now. I think the unique part of this is that we're not trying to replace any of the workforce training programs that are out there. If anything, we're trying to provide a support to many of you guys. I think we've heard over the times that we need kids, and we need kids who are ready to work, who are ready to do a program, but yet there's still a lot of social and emotional, even behavioral issues that are happening, or little barriers that are getting them to that. And that's what we've also have noticed and seen, that there's a little bit of more support that they need just prior to even get ready for the training programs. And so that's what we're trying to really fit that need. We have case managers who are going to be there to end however long that they need. And for example, we've had many of them that need a driver's license. And I know for many of the wraparound programs that are offered in some of the workforce development, you have folks who do that. But I think a lot of the times just getting them to admit that they need that driver's license, or getting to some of those family dynamics that they're sitting on, that makes it really difficult to really help change in their motivation to change. We've had families or youth who've said that, I've had a divorce in my family and it's been really impacting me. It's just really hard and motivating to be able to get to a job, or even, go on time and be on time. So a lot of job readiness things. And I feel that's where we're trying to really hone in on and get them ready for that job. And so what we want is to have a better relationship with workforce training programs out there. We definitely are making connections with Orange County, our community colleges, and a lot of their programming that they're offering for certifications and punctuations. But if we haven't reached out to you, or you haven't touched base with us, or we haven't had started a partnership yet, please reach out to us because we're looking for all opportunities that our youth, once they're ready to start a training program, we want to be able to say, hey, go to Mike or go to, we want to have a stronger relationships with our community partners and have a nice, window of referrals. So that way we can really start immediately getting them going on that training program when they're finally ready to do that. So if we haven't touched base, if you haven't touched anybody, Manny Gutierrez is my coordinator for that program. So if you haven't touched base with him, he would be the person that I would connect you to. So if we haven't formulated that partnership, please reach out to me. I'd love to be able to reach out and to learn more about what you guys offer and how we can hold hands better.
Lastly, I emailed you the flyer, but I also threw it in the chat.
Okay.
And since we're just talking about training programs, so a lot of those that are offered at local community colleges, et cetera, the tuition may be free, but sometimes, especially if some of the folks and students and youth that we're working with are looking at trades, tools, equipment, clothing can be pretty expensive, but that's somewhere where the Department of Rehab can help out with that too. So we can be a resource, especially for folks that are working as mechanics, as electricians, or any other trade. Working with somebody who's going to training to be a barber too, and all that stuff's really expensive. So sometimes they're required to purchase that, but the department can help with those types of things too. But I'll email you, just so you give me your email address. I'll email you some additional information.
Perfect. It's in the chat right now. So otherwise, hopefully you've seen that. But yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So that's the only announcement we have, and obviously the job fair in June. So yes.
Just to clarify, that flyer that was just posted for the job fair next week at the Discovery Center, is that for youth or adults?
Sorry, it's for everyone. So it's during the day. So I think it's from like 10:30 to 2. So the kids in high school,
Yeah.
I mean, they may not be able to go, but it's pretty much open to everybody.
Thank you.
Maybe the same people who'll go there will go to ours, because ours will definitely be just targeted for youth. So I think that's a nice little niche that we have, and our families as well. So, but these are really great opportunities. Thank you for sharing that information, but definitely we want to share it with amongst our networks, and we'll definitely share this along with my agency as well, and with the rest of the folks on this group as well. So I'll just make sure to share that with Megan. All right, are there any other announcements or things you guys like to share? If none, I'm not going to hold on to you guys any longer. I really do appreciate you guys' attendance, and we'll be reaching out to you guys soon regarding about the sub-planning meeting for the Job and Resource Fair for those who are already involved, as well as if anybody else is interested as well, we'll resend that out again as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I, one more thing, sorry about that, people. I got pulled out to another meeting in the lobby. I'd like to extend a cordial invitation for a site visit. We've been at this location for close to 2.5 years. And I often say, Youth Build is Orange County's best kept secret, because we have a stipend supported program. We actually pay them to come to school here and to study and to learn an apprenticeship in construction. And, Fred knows me well. He knows what I'm all about. But I'd like to send a cordial invitation. I submitted my email, my contact information. Please call me. Come visit us. Come look at the site. Take a site tour. We serve our main population that we serve is probation youth. And I did also submitted the eligibility criteria of the participants in our targeted population. But please come down, send me an email, text me, call me, smoke signal, drum signals, anything to get my attention. I love to have you here and give you a tour, meet our high school teacher and our other staff.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you so much, Mike. We got your information on here, and then I think that That's just something also, another thing that we can probably take a look at and creating a resource list. I know that I'll bring that up with Megan and seeing how we can do something. I think it's always nice to be able to go on a website and finding people's
Yes.
information and resources that are specific to this population. And so,
Right. And Megan actually visited us back in December. I don't know if I don't remember you being here with, she was here in December. Very impressed with the facility. We have a lot of space. We have a lot of room, empty rooms, I want to add. So hint, 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 you know, give me a call, text me, get a hold of me. Okay.
perfect. Thank you so much, Mike.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Definitely be
Thank you.
reaching out. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much. And we'll convene in our next quarterly meeting. Don't know what that date is just right now, but I'm sure Megan will send that out soon to y'all. Thanks again. Take care.